They blamed me the very first year, even before I could understand what was happening. 5 years later, their voices still echoed in my head every morning I woke up. "You're the reason we have no grandchild, Emily." My mother-in-law would shout from the kitchen window like she was calling cows home. And every time I swallowed my tears and smiled. "Yes, ma'am," I'd whisper. "I'm trying." But the truth, I wasn't just trying. I was breaking. Slowly, quietly, painfully. It all started the day I married my husband, Mark. Big smile, blue eyes, tall, handsome, every girl's dream. He held my hand at the altar with so much pride, I actually believed our life would be a movie. But in real life, movies end. And sometimes they end fast. 1 month after the wedding, his mom started asking questions. "So, any news?" she asked, pretending she wasn't dying to know. "Not yet," I'd say. 3 months later, the questions turned into loud whispers. The type everyone can hear except the person pretending not to. Maybe she's too weak to carry a baby. Maybe something is wrong with her body. 5 months and nothing. That's unusual. I told Mark about it one night. We were lying in bed, the ceiling fan spinning slow like it was tired of listening to us. "Babe," I whispered, "they're saying things." He shrugged. "Ignore them." "I can't," I said. "It hurts." "Well," he sighed, turning to face the wall, "maybe we should see a doctor." Those words should have made me feel supported, but he said them the same way people say, "Maybe we should clean the kitchen." No warmth, no emotion, no concern. Still, I agreed. Anything to stop the whispers. The first doctor checked me, and checked again, and checked one more time. After the third test, he smiled softly. "Emily, everything is fine with you." I smiled. For the first time in months, I smiled big. But when we got home and told his mother, her eyes narrowed like she didn't believe a single word. Doctors can lie, machines can fail, try another hospital. We did. Same result. I was fine. But nobody believed me. Not even Mark. That was the beginning of year 2. By year 2, the whispers turned into open accusations. Someone just had to breathe, and they would blame it on me. The worst day. Thanksgiving dinner. I was carrying a bowl of mashed potatoes when Mark's Aunt Linda looked me up and down and said, "You know, Emily, sometimes women who can't get pregnant are hiding secret sins." I almost dropped the bowl. "Excuse me," I stuttered. She nodded like a wise old owl. "Yes, the womb closes when the heart is guilty." "What guilt are you talking about?" I asked. "Oh, I don't know," she said dramatically. "Only you and God know." Everyone stopped eating. Everyone stared at me. Even Mark. But he didn't defend me. Not a word. He just took another bite of turkey, like he wasn't watching his wife burn alive. I cried that night, face in the pillow, shoulders shaking. I begged God for answers. "Why me?" I whispered. "What did I do?" But there was no answer. Just more whispers, more pressure, more pain. Year 3 was worse. That was when Mark began coming home late, very late. Sometimes past midnight. One night I asked him, "Where have you been?" He sighed, "Work." At 12:30 a.m., I asked. "Emily," he snapped, "don't start." "Start what?" I asked softly. He grabbed his jacket again. "You're stressing me. I'm going for a drive." He didn't return till morning. I sat on the couch all night, staring at the door like a lonely dog waiting for its owner. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I didn't breathe. And when he finally came in, he didn't apologize. He just said, "I need space." Space from me. The woman he promised to cherish. Because I wasn't pregnant. By year 4, people stopped whispering behind my back. They whispered in front of me. At church. At the grocery store. Even at my job. Mrs. Parker, my elderly neighbor, once stopped me outside the gate and said, "You know what your problem is. You don't pray enough." I smiled through the embarrassment. "Ma'am, I do pray." "Not hard enough," she said, patting my arm like she was tapping a broken machine. I walked into the house and cried again. I think I cried every week that year. Year 5 came slowly, painfully, like a tired old man dragging his feet. By then, I had learned to keep quiet, to swallow every insult, to accept every lie, to pretend I was strong when my heart was crumbling like dry bread. But everything changed one cold Monday morning. Mark came into the kitchen, holding a letter. "What's that?" I asked. "A message from the hospital," he said. "They want us to do a final checkup, together." "Together," I repeated. "Yes," he muttered. "They want to test both of us." It was strange. Very strange. But I agreed. We arrived at the hospital the next day. The nurse gave us forms to fill out. I signed mine quickly, but Mark kept hesitating. "Why are you nervous?" I asked him. "I'm not," he snapped. But he was. I could see it in his eyes. His hands shook. His breathing was uneven. Something was wrong. For the first time in 5 years, he looked more scared than me. We did the tests. They asked questions. They drew blood. They ran scans. After hours of waiting, the doctor finally called us into his office. He smiled politely, too politely, that kind of smile doctors use when they're about to say something shocking. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," he began, "thank you for your patience." I squeezed my hands together. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. "Emily," the doctor said, turning to me, "your results are perfect." I nodded. "I know, they've always been." Then he turned to Mark. "And your results," he said slowly, "explain everything." Mark swallowed hard. His eyes darted around the room. His leg bounced up and down like a child waiting to pee. What about my results?" he whispered. The doctor picked up the file. "Mark," he said gently, "you cannot have children." The world froze. My ears rang. My breath disappeared. The room spun. Everything inside me cracked. "What?" I whispered, barely hearing myself. Mark sat still, too still, like a statue made of fear. "You are completely infertile," the doctor continued. "This is not recent. This condition has existed for many years." I stared at Mark. My husband. The man who let his family blame me. Shame me. Mock me. "Many years," I repeated. The doctor nodded. "Yes, long before your marriage." I felt something hot rush up my chest. Not tears, not sadness. Anger. Pure, burning, shaking anger. "You knew," I whispered to Mark, "didn't you?" He looked at his shoes. "Emily, You knew," I shouted. Tears stormed down my face. "You let them blame me for 5 years. You made me feel broken. You watched me cry every night. You let me believe something was wrong with me." He covered his face with his hands. "I didn't know how to tell you." "You didn't know how to tell me," I sobbed. "But you knew how to let them insult me. You knew how to walk away. You knew how to make me carry guilt that wasn't mine." The doctor stood up, alarmed. "Mrs. Miller." I held up my hand. "I'm okay, doctor." But I wasn't okay. Not even close. I walked out of the office before Mark could say another word. I walked out of the hospital, out of the parking lot, out of the life I thought I had. My phone buzzed. His mother. Calling. Texting. Demanding answers. I ignored them all. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't understand how one man, one selfish, silent man, could destroy 5 years of my life so easily. I reached home before him, packed my things slowly, carefully, silently. But while I was packing, I found something hidden deep inside his drawer. A letter. A secret letter. And when I opened it, what I saw inside made my knees buckle. It wasn't just infertility he was hiding. It was something far, far darker. something that changed everything. My hands shook as I held the letter. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it echo through the quiet room. I didn't even know if I was breathing anymore. All I knew was that whatever was written inside this envelope would not be normal, not after everything. I slid the paper out slowly. The first thing I saw was a hospital logo, different from the one we just visited. Older, a date in the corner, a date from years before we got married. My eyes scanned the words. Patient, Mark Miller. Diagnosis, non-reversible infertility due to permanent reproductive damage. I felt the world tilt. He knew. He knew long before me. Long before us. Long before all the blame, the tears, the accusations. He knew. I sank to the floor. My legs just folded under me like my body couldn't hold the weight of the truth. The paper slipped from my fingers and floated onto the carpet like a dead leaf. I stared at it, unable to blink. So he married me knowing he could never give me a child. He stood at the altar, smiled at me, held my hands, and hid this. For 5 years, he watched his mother call me barren. He watched me go for tests, sit in waiting rooms trembling, cry into pillows. All while knowing the truth was in his drawer the whole time. I pressed my hands against my face and screamed. A deep, painful scream that echoed through the empty house. How could he? Why would he? My tears were hot and heavy. They fell so fast I couldn't even wipe them away. As I cried, I noticed something else inside the envelope. A second sheet, smaller, yellowish, folded. I pulled it out. It was a bill. A bill for a surgery. My throat closed when I read the description. Surgery, testicular repair attempt unsuccessful. So he didn't just know. He tried to fix it. He tried and failed. But instead of telling me, instead of being honest, he hid it and let me drown in shame for 5 whole years. My stomach twisted so hard, I thought I would vomit. The front door opened. I froze. His footsteps entered the house, slow, heavy, like he knew he was walking into a storm. Emily, he called, where are you? I swallowed hard but didn't answer. My breath came short and sharp. I wiped my tears quickly even though they were still pouring. He stepped into the bedroom and stopped when he saw me sitting on the floor, the letter spread out in front of me. His face turned pale, completely pale. He knew exactly what I had found. Emily, he whispered. I stood up slowly. My legs trembled under me, but I forced myself to stand tall. You knew, I said. My voice was low, but every word cut like glass. You knew all along. He closed his eyes. I was going to tell you. When? I shouted so loudly he flinched. When, Mark? After 10 years, after 20, after your family destroyed me completely. His lips trembled. I didn't want to lose you. You didn't want to lose me, I repeated with disbelief. So your solution was to lie, to hide everything, to let me be humiliated every single day. He ran a hand through his hair. I was ashamed. And I was, I asked, voice cracking. I wasn't ashamed when people called me cursed, when your mother told the pastor I needed deliverance, when your aunt said women like me bring bad luck to marriages. He looked away. His silence was loud, too loud. I felt anger rising again, hotter this time. I went through hell, I whispered. For 5 years, I carried pain that wasn't mine. I'm sorry, he said softly, stepping forward. I stepped back. Don't touch me. Emily. No, I cried. You let me break. You watched me fall apart every night. You pretended nothing was wrong. You let me beg God for a problem I didn't even have. He rubbed his forehead. I didn't know how to fix it. You could have told me the truth, I said, tears blurring my vision. You could have trusted me. That's all I ever wanted. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. I thought if I told you, you'd leave me. The strange thing. Hearing that didn't soften me. It broke me even more. Leave you, I whispered. Mark, I married you because I loved you. I would have stayed. I would have supported you. You didn't even give me the chance. He didn't speak. He just looked like a man sinking deep into guilt. I turned away, but before I could take another step, my phone buzzed loudly. His mother. Again. This time I answered. "Emily," she shouted without greeting, "why is Mark not picking up? What did the doctor say? Tell me right now." I wiped my tears and took a deep breath. "Ask your son," I said calmly. "Don't be rude," she snapped. "If it was your fault again, you better." "It wasn't me," I said sharply. She fell silent. "What do you mean?" she asked. "The doctor said I'm fine," I replied. "Perfect, actually." Another long silence. Then she chuckled, an ugly, mocking chuckle. "That doctor must be blind. Everyone knows you're the problem." Before I could answer, Mark stood up and grabbed the phone from my hand. "Mom," he said, voice low, "stop." "Why should I stop?" she demanded. "All these years I'm the one who can't have children." The silence on the phone was instant, heavy, almost deadly. What did you say?" she whispered. "You heard me," he said. "It's me, not Emily. It's always been me." I could almost hear her breathing change through the phone. "So you've been blaming my daughter-in-law for 5 years," I said coldly, stepping closer so she could hear me clearly, "for something your son has been hiding." "Mark," she gasped, "tell me this is a joke." "It's not," he whispered. I heard a thud, like she dropped something. "Mom," Mark said. But she didn't answer. The call just ended. Mark stared at the phone, then dropped it onto the bed. His shoulders sagged. "Everything is ruined," he whispered. "No," I said. "Everything is revealed." He looked at me with red eyes. "Emily, please don't leave." I didn't answer. Because somehow, leaving no longer felt like the biggest question. The biggest question was, why did he hide this? What else was he hiding? Because as I stood there, I remembered the date on the letter again. It was from 6 years ago. 6. Before we got married. But something else bothered me. The letter wasn't addressed to our current address. It was addressed to another apartment. One I didn't recognize. I bent down and picked up the envelope again. "Mark," I said slowly, "where were you living when you got this letter?" He froze. "Emily," he whispered, "don't do this." "Don't do what?" I asked. "Ask questions. Ask why my husband has a secret address." His chest rose and fell quickly. "That was before we met," he said. "Then, why were the bills addressed again 1 year after our wedding?" His eyes widened. He stepped back like I had slapped him. "Emily, please." I felt my heart thump hard. There was more. Much more. Something he didn't want me to know. And suddenly I realized. This drawer didn't just hide infertility. It hid a life I never knew existed. A past he buried. A person he once was. A secret that didn't die with his lies. My hands trembled again as I opened the drawer wider. Inside was another envelope. And another. And another. All addressed to the same unknown apartment. I pulled them out one by one as Mark whispered, "Please stop. Emily, please." But I didn't. Because deep inside I knew. The truth I found today was only the beginning of the truth he had been hiding all along. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep hold of the envelopes. They were old, some edges yellowed, some corners torn, all addressed to the same apartment I had never heard of. The dates spread over years, years before me, years during our marriage, even one from just last year. Mark stood by the closet like a trapped animal, his chest rising and falling way too fast. "Emily, don't open those," he whispered. I didn't even look at him. I tore open the first envelope. A letter fell out, a short one. "Your payment is late again. The landlord will not wait any longer. Please clear your outstanding balance or risk eviction." Eviction. Payment. A second home. I opened another envelope. "Mark Miller. Your next appointment is scheduled for February 12. Please do not miss it." This surgery is time-sensitive. Another surgery. Time-sensitive for what? My heartbeat quickened. My fingers trembled as I tore open a third envelope. This one wasn't from a hospital. It wasn't from a landlord. It wasn't even typed. It was handwritten. I froze the moment I read the first line. Mark, you promised you would come last month. The child keeps asking for you. My entire body stopped working for a full 5 seconds. Child. Child. My throat closed. My mind went blank. The room spun like I was falling backward into a black hole. Mark, I whispered, voice thin as smoke. What child? He rubbed his face with both hands. Please. What child? I repeated louder, dropping the letter onto the floor like it had burned my fingers. He stepped toward me, but I backed up so fast I hit the dresser. Emily, it's not what you think, he whispered. I let out a shaky laugh. Not what I think. Mark, a woman wrote that letter. A woman with a child who keeps asking for you. His eyes squeezed shut. Emily. How old? I snapped. How old is the child? He didn't answer. Answer me, I screamed. His voice cracked. 8. 8. 8 years old. 8. I grabbed the edge of the dresser to keep from falling. My breath grew shallow and fast. 8 years old. We had been married for 5. So the child existed before we married. That meant he had a secret life long before I walked down the aisle. Who is she? I whispered. He swallowed hard. Her name is Jenna. And who is the child? I asked. He looked at the floor. Her son. I hissed out a breath. Her son or your son? He took too long to answer. Way too long. Mark, I said softly, look at me. He lifted his head slowly. I stared straight into his eyes. Is that child yours? His lips trembled. His eyes glistened. Emily, he whispered, I don't know. I slapped my hand over my mouth as a sob ripped from my chest. You don't know, I cried. You do know. He tried to reach for me. Let me explain. Don't touch me, I shouted so loudly the windows rattled. My legs couldn't hold me anymore. I slid down to the floor and hugged my knees, trying to breathe as the world collapsed around me. A possible secret child. A hidden apartment. Letters from another woman. Years of lies. Years of secrets. Years of me being blamed while he hid an entire life. Emily, he whispered, kneeling in front of me, I didn't cheat on you. The child, he was born before us. I raised my head slowly. Then why hide it? He wiped his eyes, because I wasn't sure he was mine. Why not get a DNA test? I asked. I tried, he whispered. Jenna refused. So instead, I said, voice icy, you married me, hid everything, lied every day, and let your family destroy me. He closed his eyes. I was afraid you'd leave. I laughed, a sharp, broken laugh. And now? He looked at me with hopeless eyes. Now I deserve whatever happens. I stood up slowly, wiping my tears with my sleeve. Mark, I said quietly, I want the whole truth, all of it right now. He sat on the bed, elbows on his knees, hands on his forehead. Fine, he whispered. I'll tell you everything. I stood still, heart pounding. He took a deep breath. Before I met you, I dated Jenna for almost a year. It was a bad relationship. She was complicated. We fought a lot. She drank a lot. We broke up and got back together more times than I can count. I crossed my arms. Go on. One day, he said, she told me she was pregnant. My stomach dropped. I didn't believe her at first, he said. We were already breaking apart. We fought about it. She said she was sure it was mine, but I was. Why not? I asked. His silence was too long. Mark, I demanded, why not? He swallowed, because she was seeing someone else at the same time. My chest felt tight. But she insisted it was mine, he continued. So I asked for a DNA test. She refused. She said it was unnecessary. She said I was just trying to avoid responsibility. I nodded slowly. And did you avoid it? He didn't answer. Mark, I whispered, did you avoid it? He slumped forward. Yes. I closed my eyes. So she raised the child alone, he continued. She sent me letters asking for help. I ignored them before we married. I didn't want drama. I didn't want you to judge me. I wanted a clean start. A clean start, I whispered, by burying a whole human being. He looked broken. I wasn't proud of it. And after we married, I asked. I thought the child wasn't mine, he said quietly. Then last year Jenna called again. She said the boy wanted to meet me. She said he looked like me. My knees wobbled. And did you? I whispered. He looked up slowly. And my heart froze. He nodded. I covered my mouth. You met him while we were married. He nodded again, tears falling. Emily, I'm sorry, he choked. I didn't know how to tell you. My chest felt like it was being crushed by a giant hand. How long ago? I whispered. 11 months, he said softly. 11 months. 11 months of lies. 11 months of sneaking out. 11 months of late nights, excuses, fake stories about work. I thought year 4 had been bad. I didn't know it was because he was meeting another woman and a child he wasn't sure was his. Emily, he said desperately, I didn't cheat on you, I swear it. I didn't know how to explain everything. So you hid it, I whispered. Yes, he said, I hid everything. And let me carry shame that belonged to you, I added. He shut his eyes tightly. I know. I shook my head slowly. You don't know, you can't possibly know. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, there was a knock at the front door. We both froze. Knock. 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 3 slow, heavy knocks. My heart leapt into my throat. Are you expecting someone? I whispered. He shook his head, confused. No. Knock. 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 My chest tightened. That knock wasn't friendly. It wasn't normal. It was the kind of knock that carried trouble with it. I stepped backward. Who is that? He stood up slowly, wiped his face, and walked toward the door with cautious steps. I stood behind him, barely breathing. He opened the door. And there, standing on the porch under the gray afternoon sky, was a woman. Tall, blonde, red lipstick, cold eyes. She looked at me first, then at Mark, then back at me. Hello, Emily, she said, smiling faintly. My name is Jenna. My blood ran cold. She stepped inside without waiting to be invited. And behind her, a young boy followed. A boy with the same blue eyes as Mark. And in that moment, I knew. My life was about to explode again. Jenna stepped into the house like she owned the air inside it. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor, each step slicing through the silence. The boy, maybe 8, maybe 9, stood behind her, clutching a small backpack and staring at everything like he'd walked into a lion's den. Mark swallowed hard. Jenna, what are you doing here? She smirked. What does it look like? I'm tired of being ignored, and I'm tired of lying to my son. Her eyes flicked toward me, slowly, studying me from head to toe as if she were trying to guess what kind of wife I was. I didn't blink. I couldn't. My chest felt too tight, like someone had wrapped me in invisible rope and kept pulling. Say hello, Jenna said sharply, nudging the boy. The child lifted his head and looked directly at Mark. Hi, Dad. The word stabbed me straight in the heart. Mark closed his eyes for a second, then forced a small smile. Hey, buddy. Buddy. A name he had never used for any child with me. I gripped the edge of the wall so tightly my fingers started to hurt. Jenna crossed her arms. He deserves to know the truth, and so does she. Mark inhaled shakily. Jenna, this is not the time. This is exactly the time, she cut in. 5 years of hiding, of pretending I'm done. She turned to me. You must be Emily, she said. I didn't answer. I just stared at her, feeling my heart crack in slow, painful pieces. She smiled like she enjoyed the tension. I'm the woman Mark forgot to mention for half a decade. Mark groaned. Jenna, stop. She ignored him. Don't blame me, she said sweetly. If he were honest, I wouldn't have to show up at your door like this. I took a slow breath. Why are you here? Oh, honey, she said, raising an eyebrow. I'm here because you deserve the truth, and because my son deserves answers. The boy stepped forward nervously. Mom, maybe we shouldn't. She touched his shoulder gently. It's okay, Tommy. Tommy. So the boy had a name. A real name. A whole identity my husband had hidden from me. My throat tightened. Jenna, Mark said, voice low and tense, you can't just show up here. And you can't just run from responsibility, she hissed. You've been avoiding us long enough. Mark's voice trembled. I told you I don't know if he's mine. Jenna's expression hardened. And whose fault is that? You refused to come for 8 years. 8, Mark, 8. She turned to me again. He met my son 11 months ago, she said. But that wasn't nearly enough. Tommy wants to know who he is. He wants a father. And you, she pointed right at Mark, won't face the truth. I felt something break inside me. Jenna, I said quietly, why bring him here? Her sunny smile returned. Because I want a DNA test, now. My breath hitched. Now. Here. In my home. Mark shook his head. I can't do that right now. You don't have a choice, Jenna snapped. Not anymore. I stepped forward slowly. Why now? Why suddenly after all these years? Jenna's expression shifted. Something darker. Something nervous. My health isn't good, she said quietly. It's complicated. Mark frowned. Jenna. She held up a hand. Let me talk. She took a shaky breath and looked straight into my eyes. I need to know, she said softly, before it's too late. Something cold ran through my spine. What do you mean too late? I asked. She opened her mouth to answer. But the boy suddenly tugged on her sleeve. Mom, he whispered, don't. Her jaw tightened. Tommy. Don't tell them, he pleaded, please. The child's voice wasn't normal. It was scared. Really, really scared. I knelt down so I could look him in the eyes. Sweetheart, it's okay. You can talk to me. He shook his head quickly. No, you'll hate us. My chest twisted painfully. No, I won't. He started crying silently, shoulders trembling. Mark took a step toward him. Hey, buddy, talk to me. What's going on? Tommy wiped his face. You left before the doctor came. You left before Mom got really sick. I looked at Jenna sharply. Sick? What kind of sick? She swallowed hard. I've been diagnosed with early-stage kidney failure. I gasped. Mark froze. The air in the room vanished. I didn't want anyone to know, Jenna said softly, but I don't know how much time I have to do this the right way. My eyes stung. She looked at Mark. Not angry now. Not demanding. Just desperate. I need to know if he's yours, she whispered. Because if anything happens to me, I need to know he'll have someone. My stomach dropped. The child sniffed and wiped his eyes again. Then he stepped forward and looked at Mark. Are you my dad? He asked softly. The room went silent. Completely silent. Mark stood still, face pale, eyes glossy. I don't know, he whispered. The boy's lips trembled. But you look like me. Tears fell down Mark's cheeks. I exhaled shakily. Because in that moment, I saw something I had never seen in my husband before. A mixture of guilt, fear, regret, and a kind of pain I didn't know he could feel. Jenna, Mark said, I'll do the test. She closed her eyes in relief. Thank you. But not here, I said suddenly. Everyone looked at me. I stood up, wiping my face. My voice came out steady, stronger than before. We're doing this properly, at a clinic, with records, with proof, with no more secrets. Mark nodded. Okay. Jenna nodded too. That's fair. But the boy walked up to me and took my hand. I froze. He looked up at me with big blue eyes that reminded me so much of Mark it hurt to breathe. Are you mad at me? He whispered. The question crushed me. No, I said softly, kneeling again so we were eye to eye. You never did anything wrong. Everyone fights about me, he said. Mom cries, you're crying, he's scared. He pointed at Mark. Everyone is sad because of me. No, I said firmly. Adults made mistakes, not you. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he hugged me. Tight. Warm. Shaking. I looked up at Mark. His eyes widened as he watched his maybe son cling to his wife for comfort he himself never gave. Jenna wiped her eyes quietly. The house was silent, except for the boy's soft sniffles. Until Mark's phone buzzed loudly on the table. He glanced at it, frowned, and answered. Hello. I watched his expression change, first confusion, then shock, then fear. What? He whispered into the phone. My heart jumped. What is it? He lowered the phone slowly, staring at all of us with a face drained of color. That was the hospital. Everyone froze. What happened? Jenna asked quickly. Mark swallowed hard. They found something in my blood work. My stomach twisted. What did they find? I asked. He looked down at the floor, breathing hard. They said I need to come in immediately. Something is seriously wrong. The room spun. Jenna's eyes widened. Wait, what do you mean wrong? Mark looked at me with a fear I've never seen in him before. They think I might have something that could explain everything. What everything? I whispered. He swallowed again. The infertility. The failed surgeries. The symptoms I ignored. All of it. My blood ran cold. What do they think you have? I asked. He opened his mouth slowly. But before he could speak, there was another knock at the door. A hard, urgent police-style knock. Everyone froze. Mark turned toward the door slowly. The boy grabbed my hand again. Who is that? Jenna whispered. Mark walked toward the door with shaking legs. He opened it. And standing there were two men. Not police. Not neighbors. Doctors. From the hospital. And the older one spoke first. Mr. Miller, we need to talk, now. The two doctors stepped into the house without waiting for an invitation. Their expressions were serious, almost grim, and the air suddenly felt heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mr. Miller, the older doctor said, voice calm but firm, we have your test results from the recent checkup. We need to discuss them immediately. Mark swallowed hard, his face pale. He looked at me for a second, eyes wide, like he was searching for courage. Then he nodded. Please, he said quietly. Do it here, everyone's here anyway. The doctor glanced at the boy and Jenna, then back at Mark. This affects more than just you, he said. I braced myself. My chest felt tight, my stomach twisted, and my hands trembled. After 5 long years of blame, lies, and secrets, I was finally going to hear the truth. Mark, the doctor continued, the results confirm that your infertility isn't the only problem. You have a genetic condition that affects reproductive cells. That's why the surgeries didn't work and why conceiving has been impossible. But more importantly, he paused, giving Mark a serious look. The condition is inheritable. Your child, if he is biologically yours, could inherit it. The room went completely silent. Even the boy's soft sniffles stopped. Mark closed his eyes. I understand, he whispered. I stepped forward, trembling but strong. Does this mean the boy is yours? I asked, my voice shaking but steady enough. The doctor nodded. A DNA test is the only way to be 100% sure. Jenna looked at Mark, her hands gripping her son's shoulder. Then let's do it, now. Mark swallowed hard. Okay, let's get this over with. The test was done right there, using quick, simple cheek swabs. The boy watched nervously as Mark followed instructions, then Jenna did the same. I held my breath, feeling like I was floating outside my own body. 15 minutes later, the results were ready. The doctor cleared his throat. "Mark Miller," he began, "the DNA confirms what we suspected. Tommy is your son." Everything inside me froze. Mark's eyes went wide. The boy's eyes shone with shock and relief. Jenna's hands covered her mouth. And I felt a storm of emotions crash over me. Anger, betrayal, disbelief, and finally, a strange, cautious relief. Mark sank into the nearest chair, his hands trembling. I can't believe this," he whispered. The boy ran to him, throwing his arms around Mark's legs. "I knew it," he shouted. "I knew you were my dad." Mark hugged him tightly, tears running down his cheeks. I stood back, unsure what to do with my own emotions. Part of me wanted to scream, part of me wanted to collapse, and part of me, surprisingly, felt a strange sense of justice. After a long silence, Mark looked at me. "Emily, I am so sorry for everything, for hiding the truth, for letting your family blame you, for making you cry. I should have told you the moment I knew." I closed my eyes, trying to calm my racing heart. The anger was still there, burning, but something had shifted. "You should have," I said softly. "But you didn't, and for 5 years I carried a burden that wasn't mine. Do you understand that?" He nodded, voice choked. "Yes, I do. I understand more than ever." I took a deep breath. "Then now, we fix this. We face it together. But you will never hide anything from me again." Mark's eyes met mine, full of shame and hope. "I promise," he said. Jenna stepped forward. "I want him to know you, Mark, fully, and I want my son to have a father he can trust. Can we start fresh?" Mark knelt and pulled Tommy onto his lap. "Yes," he whispered. "We'll start fresh, and I will do better, I swear." Tommy hugged him tightly. "I've waited so long for this," he whispered. I watched silently. My heart ached, but the weight I had carried for 5 long years began to lift. The blame, the shame, the endless pain, they didn't vanish completely, but at least now the truth was out. I looked at Mark, the man who had hidden so much, and I realized something. He had failed me in the worst ways imaginable, yes, but the truth had a power that no lie could ever defeat. "I forgive you," I said quietly. Mark's eyes widened. "You forgive me?" "Yes," I said, meeting his gaze. "Not because what you did was okay, but because I need to free myself from this pain. And maybe it's time we try to be a real family for the first time." Mark nodded, tears streaking his face. Jenna smiled softly, holding Tommy's hand, and for the first time in years I felt a strange warmth in my chest. The house was quiet, but not empty. Not anymore. The boy was laughing softly as he spoke to Mark. Jenna watched them, her expression softer now, almost relieved. And I realized that though our family had been broken by lies, secrets, and shame, it was finally starting to heal. Mark turned to me again. "Emily, I don't deserve you, not after all this." I smiled faintly, shaking my head. "Maybe not, but we all deserve the chance to try again. That's all I ask." He nodded, agreed. And in that moment, 5 years of childlessness, blame, lies, and heartbreak began to feel like a distant nightmare. The truth, though painful, had finally set us free. As I watched the boy run around the living room, Mark holding his hand, I realized something else. Life had a strange way of punishing and forgiving at the same time. And sometimes, the hardest battles, like the ones we fought in secret, behind closed doors, could end in something unexpectedly good. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. I didn't know if our family could ever be perfect. But I knew one thing for certain. The blame was gone, the lies were exposed, and the truth had finally won. And for the first time in 5 long, painful years, I smiled with real hope. Thanks for watching. Kindly drop your comment about this video. And please subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories.